One day, King Solomon spoke to Asmodeus, the demon he had imprisoned. Solomon admitted he did not understand the supposed greatness of demons if their king, Asmodeus, could be kept in chains by a mere mortal. Asmodeus replied that if Solomon removed his chains and lent him the magic ring given to him by the angel Michael, he would demonstrate his true power. Solomon, curious and confident, agreed to the request. Once freed, the demon stood before Solomon in his full glory. One of Asmodeus's wings touched the heavens while the other reached down to the earth, showcasing his immense size and power. Seizing the moment, Asmodeus snatched Solomon up, who had foolishly parted with his protective ring. With a mighty effort, the demon flung Solomon 400 parasangs away from Jerusalem. With Solomon gone, Asmodeus disguised himself and took the place of the king, deceiving everyone into believing he was Solomon. This story is derived from the legend of the Jews. Banished from his home and deprived of his kingdom, Solomon wandered through distant lands. He was among strangers and had to beg for his daily bread. His humiliation did not end there, for the people he met thought he was insane. He kept telling them he was Solomon, the great and mighty king of Judah, but they found his claim absurd and unbelievable. This added to his suffering and deepened his despair. The lowest point came when he met someone who recognized him. The memories and associations that this recognition stirred within him made his current misery almost unbearable. The recollection of his past glories and the stark contrast with his present situation was a pain he found hard to endure. The despair grew so deep that it felt like a wound that would never heal, as the weight of his lost greatness and the mocking disbelief of strangers bore down heavily on him. His heart ached with the pain of recognition, making his humiliation and suffering even more profound. During his wanderings, Solomon encountered an old acquaintance, a wealthy and respected man, who hosted a lavish banquet in his honor. At the meal, this host spoke constantly of the grandeur and splendor he had once witnessed at Solomon's court. These memories stirred deep emotions within Solomon, moving him to tears. He wept so bitterly that when he rose from the banquet, he was not filled with the rich food but with the salt of his own tears. The following day, Solomon met another acquaintance from his past, this time a poor man. Despite his poverty, the man invited Solomon to share a meal at his humble home. All he could offer was a simple dish of greens, but he tried earnestly to soothe Solomon's grief. He said, "O my lord and king, God has promised David that the royal dignity would never depart from his house. It is God's way to correct those he loves when they stray. Be assured he will restore you to your kingdom in due time." These comforting words from his poor host touched Solomon's wounded heart more deeply than the sumptuous feast the rich man had provided. Solomon reflected on this contrast, recalling the verse from Proverbs, "Better is a dinner of herbs where love is, than a stalled ox and hatred therewith." The simple meal, offered with genuine kindness and understanding, brought Solomon more comfort than the opulent banquet that had only reminded him of his lost glory and deepened his sorrow. For 3 long years, Solomon journeyed from city to city and country to country, begging for his sustenance. He was atoning for the 3 major sins of his life, which involved disobeying the commandment in Deuteronomy that kings should not multiply horses, wives, and silver and gold. These years of wandering and begging were his penance. At the end of this period, God took pity on Solomon for the sake of his father, David, and the pious princess Naamah, daughter of the Ammonite king. Naamah was destined by God to be the ancestress of the Messiah. The time was drawing near for her to become Solomon's wife and reign as queen in Jerusalem. God guided the weary king to the capital city of Ammon. In Ammon, Solomon found work as a lowly servant in the royal kitchen. He was so skilled in cooking that he was soon promoted to the position of chief cook by the king of Ammon. This brought him to the attention of the king's daughter, Naamah, who fell deeply in love with him. Despite her parents' efforts to persuade her to marry someone of higher status, and even the king's threats of execution, Naamah remained devoted to Solomon. In a desperate attempt to separate them, the Ammonite king banished the lovers to a barren desert, hoping they would perish from starvation. Solomon and Naamah wandered through the desert until they reached a city by the sea. To stave off their hunger, they purchased a fish. When Naamah prepared the fish, she discovered Solomon's magic ring inside its belly. This was the same ring he had given to Asmodeus, who had thrown it into the sea where it was swallowed by the fish. Recognizing his ring, Solomon put it on, and in an instant, he transported himself and Naamah to Jerusalem. Once there, he confronted Asmodeus, who had been impersonating him for 3 years. Solomon expelled the demon and reclaimed his throne, with Naamah by his side as queen. Later, Solomon summoned the king of Ammon to his tribunal to answer for the disappearance of the cook and the cook's wife. He accused the Ammonite king of having killed them. The king of Ammon protested, insisting he had not killed them but had only banished them. To resolve the matter, Solomon called the queen to appear before them. To the great astonishment and joy of the king of Ammon, he recognized the queen as his own daughter, Naamah. The reunion brought relief and happiness, as the king realized his daughter was alive and well, and now the queen of Israel. Solomon succeeded in regaining his throne only after enduring many hardships. The people of Jerusalem thought he was a lunatic because he claimed to be Solomon. Over time, the members of the Sanhedrin noticed his peculiar behavior and decided to investigate. They discovered that it had been a long time since Benaiah, the king's trusted confidant, had been allowed to see the usurper. Moreover, Solomon's wives and his mother, Bathsheba, reported that the king's behavior had completely changed. It was no longer fitting for royalty, and was unlike Solomon's former manner. There was also something strange about the king's refusal to ever show his foot, likely out of fear of revealing his demon origin. With these suspicions, the Sanhedrin decided to give the king's magic ring to the wandering beggar who claimed to be King Solomon. They had him appear before the pretender on the throne. As soon as Asmodeus saw the true king, now protected by his magic ring, he fled immediately. Solomon, once again recognized and restored to his throne, reclaimed his rightful place as king. Solomon did not escape unscathed. The sight of Asmodeus in all his forbidding ugliness had terrified him so deeply that, from that point on, he surrounded his bed at night with all the valiant heroes among the people. This measure was taken to ensure his safety and to ward off any further threats from the demon, or any other danger that might arise. Solomon's experience left him wary and cautious, never wanting to face such terror again. Thank you for your support.